It being 9 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic that Commissioner Schultz will not be joining us this morning. He had a medical procedure done yesterday and he was recovering with some sedatives and stuff, so he called and not able to be with us today. Okay, approval of the agenda.
Okay, so there are some last minute changes to the agenda.
Gotcha.
Number 8 is gonna be pulled.
Hold.
Yes, I talked to Andy this morning and it doesn't need the commissioner's approval. He's gonna get the signature from Sheriff Webster. It needs to be returned soon. And then we have on the agenda number 9 to approve some donations for Farm Safety Day.
Yep.
Originally, that total was $2,070, but there's another $1,700 that's been donated, so we want to add that in for approval. And then,
Plus 17, so it'll be 3770.
correct. And then, Brian wants to add on, it would be number 12. A petition and waiver agreement having to do with the 304 South Marshall Street project. And I think that is everything, but if anyone else has anything, speak up.
That's what we got by email yesterday.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions? Entertain a motion with the adjustment. Discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Approval of previous minutes. We have board meeting from 14th of this month, March. Motion we approve. Is there a second? Discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. On the 21st, I see one correction. The public hearing for Wednesday night is at 6 p.m. Look for in the minute as far as the only addition.
I see another one too,
Okay. And the workshop one.
the workshop. It said that Victor Severson recently attended the lacrosse water. It's actually solid waste.
Solid waste. That's
Oh, yeah.
Yep, solid waste. Yes, I'm
So what time is the public hearing?
6 p.m. on tomorrow night. And then solid waste.
So I think that is what you had said at the meeting, but I looked at the notice,
Okay.
so better double check what time
That's
that
on
is.
notice, but I'll double check on that. This is the no week. So
I
that's
tried to
correct.
call you,
La
but
Crescent.
you didn't answer
What time is that?
last week when I was
Oh,
in
on my personal or on the county phone?
Well,
So anyway.
county.
yeah, so the notice says
6.
5.
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll have to
okay.
look at it
Well,
again.
whatever, get corrected to
The meeting last night at La Crescent City Hall said at 6. So that's what I was thinking too. We'll be there at 5 in case there was a miscommunication, but
We'll look after the meeting. and see
very
what
good,
that-
thank you. But that was the only thing I saw, and you saw, yeah, solid waste. Exactly. So those two corrections, entertain a motion.
so moved.
Discussion. There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Public comment. It's the time for public comments. Anybody wish to address the board? It appears, oh, go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
Is there an agenda item about the? You have it, County 249 in front of Peace Church, the guardrail, is that an agenda item?
Yes,
Okay.
discussion regarding possible fence or guardrail near the church is an item, and we might have ran out of agendas, but there are agendas up there if you want to follow along.
It's number one.
Number one on our agenda, yes. Okay,
It's an action item and it's a discussion item, but we're starting at 9:05 with a guest speaker.
at that time, we'll open it up when we get to action. And being 9:05, we have a guest speaker, Scott Kingsford from Raymond James to address us. Mr. Kingsford.
Good morning, everybody. Morning, Donna, board members. How are we doing this morning?
Doing good.
Good, good. It's nice to meet all of you this morning. I'm Scott Kingsford, and I'm Managing Director of our Public Funds Group here at Raymond James. Donna has asked me to speak to you this morning about the economy and interest rates. And I know how dry that can be. I promise not to bore you. We'll make it short, sweet, very casual. So just stop me whenever, and we'll answer some questions for you at your leisure. Just a little bit of history. I've been one of the county's investment brokers for about 33 years or so. And Audrey Peterson was my first Houston County treasurer. I think about 1990 we started together. I'm sure you all remember Audrey. I've been doing this for about 41 years. I like to say I've seen just about all of it, from a Fed funds rate in 1982 of almost 17%, all the way down to 0% over the last decade or so. And again, Donna, I'll stop from time to time and I'll let you guide me along if you would. If not, we'll just make this very casual and we'll keep going. In short, the decade of 0% to 1% interest rates has ended. The era of free money hopefully is gone. The Fed has raised overnight rates 475 basis points over the last 12 months. Literally over the last 12 months. This time last year, we were at 0%. We're now at almost 5%. That's an unprecedented move in Fed history. So investment yields have normalized. That's a very good thing, especially for bond portfolios where you can now capture 4.5% yields without trying very hard. Yes, inflation is sticky. We all know this. Fed Chairman Powell and the Fed want to combat inflation, and they have professed the desire to keep raising rates until inflation has been tamed. But with market volatility the way it is and the banking system in sort of a tricky state right now, we're just not sure how much farther the Fed can go on. One more rate increase maybe, but that's iffy at best. Two, doubtful. So we think we are close to the highs for this interest rate cycle. The yield curve is inverted right now, and I'll just simplify that for you. That just means that short-term interest rates are higher than long ones. That's a very unnatural occurrence. An inverted yield curve is a very reliable predictor of recession. So in short, we could be heading in that direction. Ultimately, we don't know. The economy appears to be strong, but again, inflation is sticky. All you have to do is go to the grocery store, go to the gas station. We can all see it. We all know it. We all feel it, and it's not pleasant. So what we think, bottom line is, folks, we think a Fed pause is near. Upon pausing, the Fed generally will hold rates level for some period of time. Right now, the overnight rate, they give you a range of 4.75 to 5%. We are there right now. So upon pausing, again, the Fed will hold rates, usually has been about a year, but in this particular environment, I'm not so sure that year is going to hold true. And then ordinarily a reverse, the so-called pivot, occurs when rates go down. So what do? If you're a portfolio manager now, you take advantage of these interest rates while you can. We haven't seen these yield levels in about 15 years. This time last year, 1% was a very good rate, and that's hard to believe. But right now we're sitting at 4.5% on investment yields. That's pretty good. Overnight rates are about the same. whether you're in the Magic Fund or you're in a savings account or some kind of money market account, if you'll just check that with Fidelity or Vanguard or whomever else, you will see the overnight rate is 4.5-ish, plus or minus 5 to 10 basis points. So what do? Well, the time to extend your investment maturities is now. Again, we haven't seen these yields in a very, very long time. I would be extending them, whatever extending means, as a portfolio manager, whether that's 2 years, 3 years, 4 or 5. I would go no longer than 5. Stick with non-callable investments. No calls, no steps, no moving parts, just very simple, dedicated maturities. You have about 4 options, basically. You've got a treasury note, you've got an agency bullet, you've got a CD, and you've got a municipal bond, and that's about it. And I would just take advantage of these yield levels, create and maintain your investment ladder, stick to it. And once you do, you'll have a portfolio on cruise control with very little maintenance. And again, you can choose whatever ladder works to your best advantage, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I would go no longer than 5 years, frankly. So, one final option is, I know you're lean times as a county when you have the least amount of money coming in, as you folks all know better than I. January, February, and March of each year. You can plug those maturities in with dedicated securities. Go out, do the 1 year, do the 2, 3, 4, and 5 years, plug in those 3 months, and away you go. Anyway, with these ideas in mind, I'll just stop and I'll be happy to take any questions. Donna, if you want to kind of guide me along here, or board members, if you have any questions or comments, I'm here as long as you wish.
Do you have any questions? When you talked about 0 to 5 years, is that a locked-in rate for up to 5 years?
I would do that, sir. It's what you can do. There are a couple of options there. If you'd like adjustable rate securities, you can certainly go in that direction. It's that's fine when rates are lower and you can ratchet right on up. Now that rates are high and I think the end is near, I would be locking in fixed term securities right now. And we call them bullets. And as you may know, a bullet just simply has no moving parts. It's a coupon, it's a dollar price, it's an interest rate, and it's a yield. And I would probably fix those right now. You can get yields anywhere from 4 to 4.5% going out 5 years. Just plug in the maturities where you think you'll need them the most. And I would start locking them in now. But if you want to hedge that position, you can certainly do that. There are adjustable rate U.S. government guaranteed securities out there that will float with the market. And generally speaking, they will float with prime. And there is no cap there. So if you want to hedge 50-50, you can certainly go in that direction. If you just want to start locking in some interest rates now, this would be certainly a good time to do that.
My name's Bob Burns. I'm a commissioner, by the way.
Yes, sir. Nice to meet you.
I'm asking Donna with regard to this. How long do we typically get investments? I mean, it seems like 5 years is a pretty long time to lock our money up.
It's normally between 3 to 5 years is my normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I first started treasurer in 2011, I know I had some investments that were, seriously, they were really long term. And I think back then, so I had investments for 13 years and some bonds that kept on going. But for the most part, for CDs, it's basically 3 to 5 years. Generally.
Collect the interest annually. As it's not growing, you can collect that in.
You could actually, there's a lot of them that pay it monthly and semi-annually is usually the case.
Mr. Skinsford, You mentioned that you were thinking that the end is near on interest rates rising. Maybe one more shot here they're gonna do. In your professional opinion, if inflation isn't under control and it's still at 6, 7, 8%, when I know Chairman Powell mentioned that he wanted to get it down to 2%. Do you think they'll just let it go then, or not keep interest rates or keep raising interest rates to bring it under control? They'll just let the inflation go?
I think they'll keep raising interest rates, sir, if that is indeed the case. You know, the wild card right now is the banking industry. And we've been reading and seeing that in the news now for the last couple of weeks. And that's a very tricky situation. You can move money out of a bank with 2 clicks of a mouse. So they've all but nationalized the banks. Treasury Secretary Yellen mentioned that last week in her testimonies. I'm sure you heard that. But to answer your question directly, if inflation does continue to rise, and if we can get the banks under control, and we think that we have, we don't feel the contagion in the banking industry. I think they have a pretty good handle on that. But if inflation is not under control, I think they will generally keep raising interest rates. They may be by 25 basis point increments. I think the days of seeing 50 and 75 basis point increases are probably behind us. Again, 475 basis points, 4.75%, in other words, is a lot, and that's unprecedented. Usually there's a lag time. Once the Fed reaches its peak, and let's just say we're close, there's generally a lag before inflation starts to fall, and that lag could be up to a year. Now, they've taken a very hawkish tone, and they've been behind the curve for a very long time. And that's why they have raised rates at such a degree over the last 12 months. I don't think that he wants to stop unless he absolutely knows that he can do so. We think there's another one in the cards next month. There may be another one in the following month. But right now, market volatility, the Fed watches that pretty closely as well. And they're watching this banking situation like a hawk. And, it's not only nationally, but it's internationally now with Credit Suisse and UBS and others, Deutsche Bank. That's, to me, that's the wild card. Yes, inflation is on one side of the coin, but the banking is on the other side of the coin. I do think we're close. That's an opinion only. But as you indicate, if interest rates continue to rise, we think they could rise in 25 basis point or 1/4 percentage point increments. If you want to keep a portion of your investments short, just sort of hedge, we call that a barbell. I think, Donna, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think we've got a fair number of short-term investments and a fair amount of cash sitting in money market to combat that. So if interest rates do continue to rise, you can selectively put it into the market with the cash that you have on hand if it's dedicated to, or a portion is dedicated to that. The other way is, as we indicated earlier, there are certainly adjustable rate securities out there to defend against higher interest rates, without caps, I might add, and they are U.S. government guaranteed. The average life on those investments are generally between 3 and 5 years. There's obviously very little interest rate risk. Again, they are U.S. government guaranteed. There is no cap on the security. If rates go up to 6, 7, 8%, your investment goes up to 6, 7, 8% as well. So you've got 3 buckets. You've got a cash bucket. You've got a bond portfolio. And if you want to hedge all of that against rising rates with adjustable rates, you can certainly go down that path as well. That is very simple to do.
All right, thank you.
Another curiosity question. You said 4.75 is a kind of an unheard of increase and whatnot. Earlier, you had said that you started back in 1980 and rates were at 17%.
That's right.
So this 4.75 can't, I mean, to get to 17%, they must have done a hell on a raising.
Well, let me qualify that one. On the unprecedented part is moving up almost 500 basis points in 1 year. That was the unprecedented part. I should have made myself a little more clear. But no, you're right. It was when I started in 82. Yes, the Fed funds rate, which currently is at close to 5, was at 17. And it went down fairly dramatically from there. The unprecedented part was the velocity of money, I should have said.
Makes sense.
I was only asking because I remember my house interest was 18%.
I remember it too. My first mortgage was 11 and a quarter, and it went down from there. So I know where you're coming from.
So is there a decision or just, this is for
No,
information?
this is just information for you commissioners, so you can kind of see where things have been going since last year. And it is quite it's like almost like a shock, because for so many years we were, between 0.5% and maybe 3%. And all of a sudden, then it went way down to 0 again. And then now we're back up to 5. And it's just like, it's like shock for most of us, because I remember too very well when they were 17% back in my banking days. And I'm just thinking, wow, if it just keeps increasing, but it doesn't sound like it's going to hopefully not get that high, because if rates did get that high, then everybody's mortgages would be the same. That would be a really bad thing for the
Just how much funds are available for going to some of these 5% deals, or you have an idea of how much that would be?
Usually I go at 100,000 at a crack, sometimes 150. So, to be quite honest, normally during normal circumstances, I don't invest much from December through May, because the taxes haven't come in yet. But right now we do have extra cash on hand. So I've been making some investments like since January, or since your report at February 28th, I've made 3 new investments. And so it like, you almost have to take advantage of that, because of just like Scott said, they're at 4.75, 5%, 3 years, 5 years. So I guess, we don't go crazy, but for right now, I'll probably wait until tax money comes in and we'll see how much cash we have. But right now I'd like to have, we have to have cash on hand so we can pay the bills, but we're sitting really pretty good right now. Would you agree, Carol? So, I'm gonna continue to make some investments.
On this sheet here for the 4 to 5 years.
Yep.
These are all the current rates that we're getting.
Let me look at it here quick. Okay, Eric is looking at the investment breakdown.
Yeah.
And 4 to 5 years, what was your question?
Yeah, so the 4 to 5 year range on here, these are all the
Right,
current ones, so like,
right, and see
Wells Fargo 1%, we
Yeah.
got a lot of 1%ers in there.
yep, and see the maturities there, 26, 26, 26.
Yeah,
So
so
those
they're
were
locked
when
in,
the
you
rates
can't-
were yeah,
can't do nothing.
yeah, can't do anything with those, no,
Well, you can, but you take a penalty.
pardon?
You can do something with it, but you take a penalty.
Right, but we would probably just let these ride, because these are ones that were invested, and if they should match up with your with the big large sheet here, and so it tells when they were invested. And so, they were invested when the rates were like maybe,
0.
yeah, 0%, 0.5%. So, they were good. It was good, 1%, like Scott said, it was good then, So when they mature, we'll just let these ride out, and then, but like I said, you don't even see it on here because I've invested it just this last month. So I've got 4.75 and 5% in a lot of CDs that I purchased from both Raymond James and the other broker, Multibank. So there are some other ones with some good interest rates on.
If you did a study on these 1%ers, to decide, just looking at the list, let's say that 95,000 or the $200,000 one right on the bottom that matures in 26. Can you look at how much the penalty would be versus going up to 4.5% for a year?
I don't know, Scott, can you answer that? What the penalty would be if we,
Yeah, you can certainly do that, Donna, and fellow board members. It's probably a dollar price that's, I don't think that's going to work for you. My guess is, and it's strictly a guess without going to a trading desk and actually getting a bid on something like that, it was, as Donna indicates, 1% at the time was the market, and your savings account was 0.02 or 0.01, so you're picking up 100 basis points there. That was the market at the time. But to answer your question, my guess is it's going to be somewhere in the 88 cent on the dollar range. Par being 100, my guess is 88, something like that.
I've never actually cashed any in early because it never.
I'm just saying,
I mean,
if it's $200,000 and you're earning 1%,
mhm,
that's $4,000. If you're gonna
Right.
lose $3,000, I'm using 75 instead of 88. If you're gonna lose $3,000 to close it out and then turn around and invest it for a year at 4.5%.
Yep.
And get your $9,000,
and I definitely could
there's
check
too
into
much
that.
trouble.
I could definitely check into that.
Just
Well,
ask.
yep, absolutely.
And we certainly can, folks. It's, the makeup time. Now, you can certainly do it. If you'd like to do it, you can do it. You just simply sell it out and redeploy the cash into a 4.5% yielding investment. The issue is makeup time. You make up a loss. Yes, you're gaining income immediately, but there is a makeup time value there as well. If that's of no real consequence to you, you just simply sell one, buy the other, and head on down the road. If makeup time is of consequence to you, we'll have to play with those numbers as well, just to see what happens there. But we don't want to go too far out the curve. My suggestion has always been 5 years is a pretty comfortable place for most investors. But that's once the ladder is built out. So you've got constant maturities from next month all the way out to 60 months. So there's always money coming due. Now, some counties can do that, others cannot. You just simply invest when you can and when it's comfortable for you. But yes, we can certainly go down that path. If you'd like for me to run some numbers for you based upon selling one and buying another, we can do that.
Curiosity, it only seems to me that if we're making 1% and we could be making 4.5%, the penalty for early withdrawal can't be more than the 1%.
No, it's those are if we're talking about a CD specifically, those are negotiable CDs. They trade on a dollar price. Now, if it's a local CD and you want to take your money back out and they penalize you 3 months interest or 6 months interest, that's another thing. But negotiable CDs trade just like Treasury notes. They assign it's based upon market value. Whatever that 1% is worth with a dedicated maturity of 2026 is the dollar price. So the local CDs, so you can certainly cash those in if you wish, and they'll penalize you, Donna, 3 to 6 months interest or whatever the case may be.
Mm.
But the other CDs are negotiable, and they trade just like Treasury notes, just like any other security. There's a dollar price, there's a market value, and away you go.
Yep. And I can certainly check that out, commissioners.
I think it's beneficial to have that number or information at least.
Mhm.
Sure, I'll be happy to help.
If we got negotiable certificates of deposit, the dollar amount you show is $2,891,000. If we can pick up 2% on that over the life of those investments.
I will certainly see what the outcome would be from that was with Wells Fargo. So I'll call the.
Just curious, that's all.
Yep.
It's more trouble than it's worth, then that's fine too.
Mhm. we can do that. Okay, any other questions, commissioners? All right, well, thank you so much, Scott, for taking time away from your vacation to talk to
Oh,
us.
no, hey, this is my passion. This is what I do. Business before pleasure, always.
And I hope that at some point in time you can find the camera button on your. So we can see you.
You know, Donna said, you know what, I would like for them to see you. That would be helpful. Well, my millennial just walked straight out the door and unfortunately,
Oh,
she knows all that good stuff. Anyway, I
Mhm.
apologize for that. I do have on a shirt and tie, I promise you though.
oh, wow, that's great. Okay,
Thanks,
well,
Scott.
thanks a lot, Scott.
All right, folks, it's nice to meet you all. Let me know how I
Thank
can help.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, anything else you want to add, Donna, before we move on to the next one?
No, you know, if you guys need to ask me any questions about the investment stuff here, go ahead, but there's not no questions, we're.
I think Commissioner Burns' question, thought about, you know, how much of the cost is to sell out some of these 1%ers and you can get it.
Right, and I did look at that and think, right, that's so, and I researched, I mean, the rates have really been increasing these last couple of months, so, you know, it's certainly something to look into. I will check it out.
I understand what Scott was saying. I mean,
Exactly.
you take and pull it out, you're gonna lose some money.
Right.
And it's gonna take 3 to 4 to 6 months to get back to even before you're gonna start seeing the. But if it's money that we don't have to take out for 2 years.
Right,
Makes
it will
sense.
make it up with
We'll make it up.
5%,
It's
yeah.
already in a 4 or 5 year investment.
Right.
Yep, that's correct. And like I said, I don't know if you looked much at the daily trial balance, but the highlighted in orange at the bottom here,
Mhm.
that's the special account that we have at Titan. And that is basically,
Yeah.
you know, I normally don't even touch that too much until it gets, like, this is about the time of year we get a little short of cash, but so far so good. We haven't had to touch it. But of course, you know, after next week, when statements go out, you know, people start paying their taxes and we'll have a nice accumulation of cash again. But for right now, we seem to be holding our own. I don't need to touch this much, so.
So we are getting 275 on that.
Yep, 275 on that. And then I just want to mention the merchants, we're also getting 1.19 on the, everything in our main general account. And then if you go to the back, if you go to this sheet, which has the fund investments on. If I were to stick any money into the ICS and merchants, which is for the third column
Which
down,
sheet are you on?
this one.
Yep.
The longer sheet, ICS merchants is on here.
Yep.
So if I decide to transfer some money out of the general fund into this ICS and merchants, the rate is actually 1.49%. So you can get a little bit more money if I do that as well. So, you know, there's a lot of ways to get a little more in the money markets, you know, just by taking advantage of that. So, you know, and technically, sometimes traditionally, I should say, I do transfer money after the taxes have accumulated into the money market at ICE just until settlement goes out and we figure everything out. So, you know, I will be putting money into that account as well. And that is, like I said, Eric, 2.75. So it is a good interest rate for a money market.
And it's liquid.
Yes, yeah. Scott had told me that there is a money market out there that you could get, you know, he could find the money market. I can't remember what it is we're dealing with, but it's liquid. And it's like 4.5% or something like that. But I'd rather keep it, you know, local and be able to get at it right away. Just because we've always been able to do that, it makes it easier.
Gotta be a little bit careful which bank you're dealing with as far as the strength of that institution too.
Right.
Oh, no.
You
they're
have
all
to-
gonna cover them.
Yeah, you will. The brokers, all the brokers that we have, you know, Wells Fargo, Raymond James, and Multi-Bank.
No, don't look. They said they were gonna cover all deposits. Up to, no, past that too.
You know,
And they're also trying to sell a bridge out of New York.
I think, you know, I know for sure the county actually is very safe. You know, we have Iceland Bank, is collateralizing our deposits every month. We get a report. Merchants, same thing, you know, so actually, I gotta take that back. Merchants does not because of all the banks cover each other, so I don't get a monthly report from them, but for the most part, I do think we're definitely safe. All the brokers sign an agreement every year. The auditors, I have to sign they have to sign a form to agree they're gonna follow the investment agreement. And then they follow all the regulations that they have to abide by all the regulations by the state auditors. So as far as that goes, we're covered. And believe me, the auditors check it every single year, so they make sure that it's all signed, and it actually has to be signed at the beginning of each year before we even start the year out. So it's a good thing.
Like, we're in good shape.
I just look at this negotiable certificate of deposit. There's roughly $1 million in that 1.2% category.
Are you looking at the big one? Are you looking at that's ESD? Yes,
Negotiable certificate of deposit.
yep, Aiken State Bank. And look at the good rates we've been getting since 1411.
Oh, yeah.
We've been doing very well with those.
And we have.
Mhm.
And if we take those 1%ers, which, you know, in a year, $1 million at 1% is only 10,000.
Mhm.
But if we switch it and lose some, but we're gonna make 40,000.
You'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need
We'll
to.
definitely take a look.
Thanks.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, commissioners.
Okay, so, in our, consent agenda, I believe, well, you want the discussion of the fence and guardrail, or is that gonna be part of an action item right away? What do you want me to talk? Here.
I think they want to talk, Brian may want to talk and.
Okay. That's the plan. Okay, representatives of Even Church of Peace, you have some ideas, or maybe, Brian can come on up too and explain what's the plan, all the pictures, or see what's the thoughts here. And Don will get. Come on up and, introduce yourself and explain what you like to see here, sir.
Okay, my name is Howard Hackford. I'm on the cemetery board at the church. I have pictures that we took yesterday. Whatever, you guys want to see them?
Sure.
No, I want.
Okay, that's right.
That one.
A different
Yeah, you might.
direction.
You could.
I'm gonna call them.
Okay.
I could go over there and use it. What's your seat?
A little bit bigger.
Yeah, just up.
Okay, we'll be on the stand back there and then explain. So it's on record,
Yeah, just have a chair and sit down, then we can hear you too.
you're on candid camera. Explain to us what the issues and.
Okay. Okay, we got the road right there. We would like to see a guardrail put up there to prevent people from coming over the edge of the road and going down the cemetery. Or even to hit the church or the arch that was in front of the church. Within about the last year, someone went over there with an F-150 pickup, and when you're standing up on the road where he went over, you wonder how the heck he did that without rolling the pickup forward. If he'd have rolled it over, he would have probably ended up on the tombstone. Or he didn't, but he didn't do that. He did end up going over and he smashed into that arch that's in front of the church. Okay, he could have just as well hit the church, but he ended up hitting that arch. So what we're trying to do is to prevent that from happening again, if that's something that you guys will consider. As far as building something there, if something is built on the edge of the road to prevent them from going over the bank, it would be a lot easier to stop a vehicle up there than if it was down over the bank a ways where they're already heading downhill. You know, to hit it when they're already going downhill would take a lot more fence over the bank a ways.
Now, if the guardrail was to put up, do you need the edge of the roadway for parking when you have your services or funerals?
People park there, yes.
So I guess
Can't be-
Brian
can't-
can tell us better, but I guess when I looked at the picture that Brian provided on our email, I saw a fence that was apparently further up the road from your pictures. But I was just looking here, wondering if a guardrail goes in, parking could become an issue.
No, if the guardrail is at the edge there, should be able to park right beside the guardrail. It's about approximately 200 feet from where the arch is up to where, I think on your pictures, you should be able to see a pickup parked up there.
Right.
To about approximately 200 feet to that point. And then there's another section of cemetery beyond that, but there's a little section of trees and brush and stuff down there. But the main part would be that 200 feet. As I see it anyway.
Okay.
And there was a fence in there prior to when you guys worked on when the road was worked on, I believe in 2009, there was a chain link fence up there that was removed.
So I saw on the one picture was a color picture we got yesterday.
Yep, so.
Brian?
Yep.
Yes,
Where
like,
did this, I guess I haven't got that email.
okay, yep, so, I copied Greg and Dewey in on this, so I'll explain everything now and I don't wanna interrupt or jump in, but get a little bit of background of what the road looked like, pictures of from 2008 and 9, and then after the project, what it looked like today, so, right here is the church, just jump around a little bit on that screen, but right here is the church. The cemetery is over here east of the church. So that's the area that we're talking about with guardrails between the road and the cemetery. The old road used to come up here by the church, and then it had some curves and it came down to a bridge down below. And in 2009, that road got realigned to the alignment that shows this darker line through there.
That old road still there then?
So the old road is gone. So at that time when the old road was there was a parking lot was across the road from the church, was their primary parking lot. There was a small parking lot next to the church. After the old road got moved to the new location, this area over here became parking lot. So now if I jump over to photos. So here's pictures from prior to the road being realigned. So this vehicle is sitting across the road from the church and the old parking across the road.
That white sign in the back, okay, I
Yep.
shows it better now, that's cemetery.
Yep, so here's the church, the entrance to the church. The cemetery is just off to the right of the church. I have more pictures so you'll be able to see it closer. You can see the old fence posts that are in there. The fence is gone at this point, but the posts are still in place. So the fencing that was there between the road and the cemetery was the same as this fence that shows up right down here. It's a wire mesh fence that was there. So that was the same fence that was along the road, I believe, based on our survey. It all called it a welded wire.
So that
mesh
was,
fence.
the church put that fence.
Yeah, so that
It
was
wasn't
their,
a county fence, it was a church.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep, so that was originally church. Here's the small parking lot that was adjacent to the road on the church side. So this is again on the old alignment, what'll look like across from the church. There's the curve going down with the parking on across the road where that pickup is parked. Looking down the hill from the church area. And up the hill.
So that mound of dirt there straight was taken out to straighten out the road.
Yep, so it was cut out. Here's coming to the church from the east going to the west. You go up over a little knob. Cemetery's right off to the right prior to the church, just beyond that. This tree. This looking the opposite direction from up there. So here's so I have a couple pictures here with the cemetery. So the old fence, for the most part, I think the posts were in good shape. On the east side of that, there were some posts that were leaning, but you can see the slope here. You know, it's not a flat slope, but it's not super steep. And here's back from the church looking to the east. Like I said, I think for the most part, a lot of these posts were in good shape. We had the fence that was pinched between the two posts. You can see that slope of what exists between the road and the cemetery. And this up and down that same area. And then I'm gonna jump to what it looks like out there last week. So being that it's early spring, we don't have much for color on it for vegetation. It's a lot of brown grass. So this is at the church looking to the west. So the road been shifted over. You can see kind of some of that parking area that now exists on the church side, west of the church. This is going back a little bit. Just sitting on the east side of the church, cemeteries off to the right. And then here is that area again. So that same as that last picture I showed before. It has a cemetery, has a roadway, the church, so it has that slope. So this slope essentially now is the same as what it was prior to the road being built, because the road shifted away and it didn't really change elevations here. Looking the other direction from the cemetery, if you look further to the east, you can tell that you know, the slope of this being here versus the slope farther to the east, it gets steeper that way. Yeah, you see there's no cemetery down that way.
It looks like it's a straight shot. It's not a curve there. It's straight.
Correct. It's not a curve. There's a slight curve, but it's not major.
Not like it used to be.
Yeah, not well. This
You're
area
coming down
pretty
the
straight
hill,
is how it
that
used to
part.
be. The hill part used to have the curves. Now it's a little bit straighter on the hill. But coming up to the cemetery, it's more of you going over a little hill on the road that you don't see the road grade, but it's not, I don't think, anything drastic in that. Yeah. And then here's kind of that parking lot area that was built. So when the county did that project, we used that material that was cut off from the south side of the road, moved it over into the north side, so that we have a bigger parking lot right adjacent to the church. And then the county also installed some posts and some cabling to kind of define the end of that parking lot and to help protect vehicles from driving off the edge of the parking lot. There's that cable again from a little bit closer view. So that's a lot of the pictures of that. And if I load up that other screen I had up at the very beginning. Again, here's that alignment. That down out here. So, you know, as you come from the east to the west, you know, it's on a slight curve as it's coming up by the cemetery. The top of the hill is way over here at station, probably 10 plus 00 is probably from where the top of the hill is. So it's a slight curve, but it's not a major curve at that location.
suppose the main problem is when people are coming from this direction and coming this way.
Yeah.
They
So
just
going
they
back-
forget to turn and they go straight into the cemetery.
Well, no, basically, if you were coming over the top of the hill,
That's where the problem is.
what I would say, because you'd be on the right-hand side of the road. If you're coming the other way, you're on away from the church,
Right,
you're on the
right.
far side of the road.
Okay.
And so on, and that part of it didn't change a whole lot. Mainly everything that was, what was changed basically was right in front of the church and below the church. We saw the road was straightened compared to what it used to be. And then the parking lot got put there, which is great. There used to be another building on the opposite side of the road from the church that got eliminated. And was a well over there once upon a time too, that's, I guess, eliminated. But the part we are concerned about is the part from the church to the top of the hill, which is
Yeah,
about 200 feet.
From the church west eastbound to the top of the knob there,
Right.
right along the. Okay.
It's about 200 feet. Yeah, I measured it yesterday.
How many feet?
200.
And that's, would that go in front of the church or is that from your arch?
That's from the arch beyond that picture. You see the arch there. It would
Yep.
be basically, I measured from the east side of the arch up to where my pickup is at the top of the hill there,
200
which is
feet.
about 200 feet.
And request or idea is what kind of guardrail?
Whatever it takes to hopefully prevent vehicles from going over the edge.
Well, there's plated guardrail and there's cable guardrail and one has a price tag and one has a different price tag.
And well,
So I guess that'd be up. Brian,
that's,
do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, so my recommendation, so after taking a look at this, you know, when you look at County Road 249 all the way up and down it and other roadways throughout the county is, you know, where is we're gonna put guardrail up around the county, where's the best location? You know, is this location the best location? You look at federal highway guidelines, state guidelines, and you know, guardrail in and amongst itself or any type of barrier can create a hazard itself. Because you know, you're putting an object that's right adjacent to the roadway. Where currently there's nothing that's right adjacent to the roadway. You know, eventually, you know, when you put it there, it's going to be a closer area for the vehicle to hit. If it's not there, the vehicle can get to the edge. It's not going to hit, not going to hit anything. Eventually, it's going to drive off the edge, potentially hit a tree, or in this case, a headstone. So you look at the guidelines and the standards that are put in place. You know, there's a lot of locations where ideally there would be guardrails installed or cable barriers installed. But then there's also the cost of maintenance, the cost of installation, the hazards posed by the guardrails. So, you know, the most commonly struck items adjacent to roadways are trees. People leave a road, they hit a tree. For the severe and fatal accidents are trees. But actually the sixth most common struck object on a fatal accident is a guardrail itself. So they can create their own hazards. When you look at the federal guidelines for very low volume roadways, which they consider roadways being low volume or very low volume, if it's less than 400 vehicles a day. In this case, the roadway down at Freeburg, I believe, has about 85 vehicles per day. And as you get over to this area, it's even a little bit less than that. So the amount of traffic is really low on it. Recommendation, they even, within the federal guidelines, they rate stuff on the risks for the hazard. You have low severity risk, medium risk, high risk of having some severe injury with the accident. This is in the moderate risk, kind of in the middle of the road at risk. National guidelines says that for this type of risk level, recommendations, you know, try to remove any type of hazards. If you can, if you can't, you can leave it, but usually you do not install any type of barrier at this type of location. You know, so based on that, along with, if you're going to put a barrier up, what's the greatest risk to the public? Is it this location right next to the cemetery? Is it just up the road where the slope is steeper and there's trees? Is it a mile or two up the road where it's even, there's some other areas that are just as steep or more steep and more trees. I don't think that this is as big of a hazard as what there would be at other places along the roadway. So, my recommendation because of that, and also by the guidelines and knowing that guardrails themselves or any type of barrier can cause, a hazard itself. My recommendation is to not allow or to not put up any type of guardrail there. Now to put a fencing back up, as a barrier in between the roadway and the cemetery, I'm not opposed to that at all. There was a fence at one point, fences are good for defining, this is, the road right away or the road, this is private property. Fencing, there's a lot of good things about fences. I'm not opposed to that. Whether the county would want to say, put the fence back up where it used to be, or put it back up farther back. I would recommend that fencing gets put back farther away from the road to where it used to be, for a couple of reasons.
Down by that pole.
Yeah, one, so I'm gonna share this screen, a couple pictures here, so. So where it used to be, it's up by the roadway, I believe this is about 4 feet off the gravel. You can see that the fence here is tipped some, it's close. So that the fencing could cause a hazard itself. Fencing that's close to within the clear zone or road, what they recommend there if any fencing does get installed. You have the posts up, you can have the fence, but do not have a top post. So that way if you hit it with a vehicle, it has a little bit more flexibility. It's not working in unison with the posts. But then if you look at what it looks like out there today,
Basically, the way I'm looking at this picture here, if they were
Yeah.
allowed to put their fence back up. So right along that tree, just below that tree line, you guys have a tree line kind of. It'd be down in, right?
So you can see, with all this gravel that's out here, the reason why that's gravel there is because when we're plowing in the winter, that snow's flying, gravel's flying. Anything that's within this main gravel area, stuff's gonna get pounded with that as, and over time that fence is gonna keep getting damaged and pushed back. If you look at the 33 feet from center line, really it pushes it out into this ballpark for the fence. And that's where I recommend that a fence go back and kind of outside where we'll be impacted by our winter maintenance operations. Along with a little bit farther away from the roadway. So instead of having it up here, my recommendation would be to push it back.
Well, we put
Yeah.
the guardrails in, if they're gonna fall slow. They're gonna get.
No, we would keep plowing it to the right. We're not gonna plow the snow to the other side, so. Yeah, if you put guardrail in, the face of the guardrail needs to be, there's requirements on the height and where it's located, so that the edge of the guardrail is gonna need to be, up near the edge of the gravel. You'd have posts kind of out here. And then, yeah, if people park here on this side, they need to park over further, especially with getting in and out of those doors. So definitely those vehicles would be parked over a little bit.
How wide is the rock? It's the edge, how roads are, take it from that grass line to the grass line.
Yeah, so
Hopefully it's 24 feet.
yeah, so when it was originally installed, I believe it was at 24 feet. So yeah, so 24 foot, so 2 12-foot aggregate surfaces. So that's what it was at that time. I didn't go out there, I didn't measure when I was out there to see if it's right at 24 feet or if it's been pushed out slightly more, but it's close to 24.
So your thought, if not to put a guardrail at this time, but a fence could would be permitted along the property line type of thing? That kind of the getting out of that?
Can I say something? If you put a fence down over the bank a little ways there, it's gonna be more challenging to mow above it because of how steep that
And more
is.
challenging what?
To mow the lawn above it because it's pretty steep. And if a vehicle first goes over the bank and then hits the fence, it's gonna hit it a hell of a lot harder than if it was up by the edge of the road.
Fence like that isn't gonna stop a vehicle with any kind of speed.
If he's already going, heading down the hill, yeah.
The question from earlier, how much does it cost for 200 feet of plate guardrail versus 200 feet of?
We haven't put up, we maintain what we've had for the 3-wire barrier fencing, so I don't have a current cost on that. Plate beam guardrail, probably it's gonna be pushing, $15,000, my guess for this, because the end sections alone are gonna be about, and I don't have the current price with how inflation's affected everything here in the last year on that. But we're probably gonna be $300 to $400 or $3,000 to $4,000 for each end section on that plate guardrail. And with inflation, maybe that's closer to 5,000 for each end. So we're gonna be, $6,000 to $10,000 for the end sections, plus that railing in between. So that's where I'm guessing that'll be that 15,000 without pricing it out.
The wire, don't have a guess on the wire.
It'll be a little bit less than that.
But you don't put that up.
But we typically don't. And the reason why is because, when you hit the cable, so what all the functions that you have, the dead man, the blocks on the ends, you hit that and then that cable stretches. And you need to have space in the room for that. So typically in the areas that we put it up around the county, we just don't have enough space to have that cable stretch without that car starting to drop off, and then you start having that car slide under the wire and have that wire come up into the windshield area and cause other problems. So usually plate beam is the best for counties. It works better on a high volume, higher speed road that they have that flat area. Like as traffic volumes increase, the clear zone limitations or requirements increase as well. So like Highway 44, you typically try to have a 25-foot space where vehicles aren't going to roll over if they leave the road. On a lower volume roadway, that gets down to 7 feet or less.
On an estimate, the wire plate would cost maybe 10,000
Yes.
with the end that's tapering down, so the taper down. I mean, it'd have to end before you get to that arch. Otherwise, you got that sloping end piece coming down right in front of the church. Trouble with the guardrail along the road, it'd have to be no parking along there because of the fact that you got a 24-foot road and people are parking along there. Now you narrow up the road and 2 cars coming to meet each other, either gonna skin the car that's parked there or they're gonna go in the ditch. Not that the ditch on the other side is steep.
You're all putting a chain link fence. That would help stop something. Once you get a drift of snow up, the snow banks up in there. That'll stop them a little bit. Maybe the chain link would stop them. Guardrail, you're gonna have to go with the cable.
If you,
Narrow it up.
Yeah, either way, it's gonna narrow.
if you had the cable, then this plowing the snow shouldn't be a problem, would it? Too much? As much?
The snow would go through.
Snow
the
pushes
cable
through
better.
it easier.
That'd be the only advantage of the cable.
I think we probably need to get more information as far as costs. Even including the cost of chain link fence. So it's fair move, but. Momentum added to the speed of the vehicle going down a grade is minimal. There is gonna be an additional piece of momentum. Perhaps. The chain link might be enough. Can I sit there and say they're gonna stop a Mack truck? But it might be enough. And I think if we're gonna get into. Costs here, we just need to have more information. To be honest with you, that's my fear.
Curiosity, Howard, the pickup that went over the bank. That was this last winter.
I believe it was last summer or.
It was in the summer.
Yep.
And the reason he went over the bank, was it a medical situation or a
Well,
not paying attention situation?
his mind was a little bit deterred because he had too much alcohol to drink.
Yeah, so that's one thing I forgot to mention. So I did check with the sheriff's office on accident reports, history down in that area. Over the last 10 years, there's been one documented accident out there, and it was alcohol was a major factor in that accident. So, or that crash. So we are talking about an area that's had one crash documented in the last 10 years.
And on the below, when you get below the church, is it a driveway into that parking lot that was created when you changed the layout of the road and made the parking lot on that side? Is it all gravel into the parking lot, or is there a specific driveway and then you park?
Oh, there's a specific drive entrance into it.
Specific.
Figures you get us some estimates on chain link fence and cable. That we'll see what the pricing.
So I can definitely get prices on anything. But I wanna reiterate though, chain link fence is not designed to stop vehicles. That can create a hazard as well. And then secondly, would that be something that the county would be paying for? Is that something that the church would be paying for? Because when this road was realigned, that was at my understanding, that was the church that approached the county at that point. That was before I was here. Got some emails from 2009. So we realigned the roadway. We created that parking lot, made it bigger, better for them. We put that fencing around that. It wasn't that fence was removed and the church didn't get anything back in exchange. At that same time, there was, it was a lot of discussion that took place, prior to myself being here. So I wouldn't say that the county took something away and now they're asking for something to come back. I would say that was a discussion on what everyone wanted at that time. And so, it's just something that the county wants to put up is a fence in this location. There's other cemeteries around the county. There's other churches. There's other landowners that, they come to the county requesting a chain link fence to go up. Are we gonna start putting up chain link fences all over the place?
Okay, think with more information and bring it back again, I guess, for lack of a better word.
May I make some comments here? I'm
Introduce yourself and then make your comments.
David Lunis, and I'm part of the church that Howard's part of.
Let's put it forward.
And I just want to make two comments and a question. One comment is the evaluation that Brian's obligated to do, but the evaluation that putting up a guardrail or a wired rail he has to evaluate the hazard, the traffic hazard that causes. I would just offer that I don't think anyone is capable of analyzing the full hazard, because say a car did come down, careen down and hit the fence and the driver was killed. That's one statistic. But what we don't know is he may have been killed anyhow if there wasn't a fence there and he tumbled down into the cemetery. Now we have a death, but we also have severe damage to a cemetery. So and you can never know when an accident happened, what that other result might have been. So I just question, the usefulness of that evaluation. A question that I have is, well, the other comment first is parking alongside the road only happens now on special occasions at the church.
Easter, Christmas.
Yeah, wedding,
Funeral, weddings.
funerals, weddings, right. So it's not a regular occurrence. And the third thing I would say is, I would have as a question, if a guardrail or a wire cable fence were put on at the same location that the former fence was. I don't know if it would be less effective, but if it were in that same location, it would not affect any parking alongside the road. It would be far enough away from the roadbed, the way that the original fence was.
The original fence had a cable running through them posts.
No, that was just a chain link fence.
Right.
There was
Well, there's a wire fence, yeah.
mesh.
Wire mesh, all right.
Yeah, so any type of guardrail or cable, by design standards, they need to be, it's based on the elevation of your roadway or your roadway shoulder, so it would need to be up there.
Closer than that other fence was.
The design is to keep them on the road, rather than let them fall through, go through and down to the ditch.
Once it went over the bank, there's less chance of stopping the vehicle, certainly.
Yeah.
It's been down there. I compliment the work that's been done, changing the road and everything and the parking lot and all that. That's great. That's beautiful. Nicely done. But we still would like to prevent something from happening. And nowadays, insurance happy lawyers and everything else, if somebody comes down over the bank, are they going to try to prove that the cemetery, the tombstone was in the wrong? Or who's going to get sued over it? Probably.
And it makes a good point as far as if we do this here, where else do we have to do it? Are we accepting responsibility for any place, somebody thinks we might have an issue?
Well, we're setting it as precedent.
It's a precedent. I've driven 249 a lot over my years. In fact, I drove off the side of that. Well, no drinking, but there's a lot more hazardous places along 249 than this slope coming down to the church. Some of the sharp corners and some of the ultra long steep banks and culverts and ditches and whatnot that you come across. Then you drop off the road. But I guess if we could get numbers at least to what it would cost to put up a.
Well, here's a question that I asked Brian. He didn't have a chance to answer it yet, but going out of Freeburg, another route, 24, County 24, that ends up on Highway 3. Just past a bridge, there's a road address there, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, where there are guardrails on both sides of the road. Now, they're existing now. I would just like to ask Brian how the evaluation came to put those guardrails up, or were they up maybe when you?
So I believe that bridge was replaced prior to me getting here. But
They're
that
just
was,
beyond the
that was,
bridge,
yeah,
yeah.
but that was done when that bridge was rebuilt. And when you replace a bridge, you bring everything up to a current standards at that time. So that's why that entire road on that section is wider. And then can't remember if that bridge itself has guardrail tied to the bridge or if it's just up the road from
I
the
don't
bridge.
think they're tied.
So it's also with that project to bring everything up to the current standards. So you have a reconstruction standard. And then you have your existing stuff that you're not doing a project, you start to add stuff. So that became when you replace that structure, you bring it fully up to the new standards. So, you know, in this case, you know, if you add a guardrail or cable barrier or anything in this area by that church, it was different design standards because of the roadway itself, along with the funding source at that time. So
Because to the eye, it looks like a very similar situation. It's not a cemetery, it's a house. And outbuildings on the other side of the road.
Yep.
But there's slope there and
and you can go farther up the hill on 24 where it hasn't been rebuilt, and you have a lot longer and you know slopes that's much steeper than this area.
okay.
So you know, I said you can pick examples both ways, or I can pick a ton of examples both ways around the county, and I'm not trying to minimize you know, any one standpoint on this. I definitely understand why the church would like to have something done. But I also, you know, from the county and the consistency and the guidelines provided by the state and the federal services, you know, you need to decide, you know, why do you pick this area, not the next area?
Well, I think we're at a point of getting more information, to determine that you can build the safest roads out there. It's only dependent upon the people that are using them. Many time I picked up bodies on I-90. And they're pretty safe road, but it's only dependent upon the user thereof. Is that a fair statement? So let's get more information and we'll, you know, we've got a lot of discussion on.
We feel that, you know, it'd be good to be able to protect the cemetery, basically. And you know, as far as the funding goes, you know, there's money to be had that the church could help support this. Donate money towards this.
I think with numbers, that'll help us determine if we're gonna, first of all, be involved, allow it, or recommend it. But I think with the funding part, from memos I've seen, I don't think the funding may not be an issue on our part. I don't know, but I need to have numbers to weigh that issue. That's fair to say.
Get some numbers and then we'll go from there. We either discuss if we want to do something, if you guys want to go away. We'll see how that goes. We get to get some numbers first. Okay. That's it. We can sit here and say, let's sit here and have a couple of numbers. That'd be the best bet. Get some numbers and then we can kind of go.
So as far as the action item on number one of discuss and consider motion, we just table that, or do you want to just
Make a motion to table.
table it? Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second to table for the discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, say nay. Carried. Get information and we'll take a look at it.
Thank you,
Gentlemen.
yeah, thank you for your time. I just like to say, commend Brian. I've had a lot of email discussion with him prior to this, and I appreciate his professionalism, his courteous and his thoroughness in the exchange. So
Very good.
even though we're coming to different conclusions.
No,
Thank you, Ian.
that's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number two is, Brian, you got a few things here.
Yep, so
Consider approval of the salt through cooperative purchasing venture. That'll be for the coming season.
Yeah, so we can do this, but since Casey Klug is here from the city of Caledonia, could we jump down to the petition and waiver agreement?
Where was that?
That was gonna be number 12. That was the one that was added.
Yeah,
to the
the
agenda
one
for
we added
today.
in.
Just added in, okay. Go ahead, okay.
I don't know if Casey wants to come up here at all, but so the county board approved the agreement with Zinke to do the west parking lot of the courthouse. Total cost of that project was about $297,000. The county's portion was 275. City of Caledonia's portion was 20,600 roughly. I have the exact numbers I can pull up if you want them. But
Can you share that on your screen?
Exact number.
Yep. So yeah, I was listening. I do have the exact numbers here. So the overall parking lot project cost was $296,165.05. Houston County's portion of that project, $275,573.19. City of Caledonia's portion, $20,591.86. So the city of Caledonia's portion is primarily the paving of the road surface. There's some minor costs for adjustment of structures, but primarily it's the paving of East Washington Street. So we talked about this, or I talked about this with the city quite a bit last winter of 21-22. And then in the spring went to the I believe it was on May 23rd of 2022, went to the city council meeting. Those discussions and recommendation was to include the paving of East Washington Street within our plans. Said it didn't make sense to bid out our project and have the city bid out that pavement on that surface separately. So that number was included within the number that was approved by the board. Now, the city of Caledonia can definitely choose to not repave that surface of East Washington Street. To do so is just a simple quantity adjustment within the project plans. So we have the unit price. It doesn't change the unit price cost. It just changed the overall quantity of stuff that gets installed. So around that same time, City of Caledonia was talking about starting to assess projects back to adjacent property owners on their projects. And as the project that the City of Caledonia recently bid out in the downtown area, they're now assessing back the adjacent landowners 25%. This process, in order to do the same thing on this project, generally will require the same process to be followed, which I believe is two public or two information meetings.
Right, feasibility study, couple of meetings.
Yep.
Special costs, and we missed the boat on this project, so basically where we're at with it is this waiver petition. If the county and the other landowner would waive that right to the hearing and the notices and all that, we can just move forward with this project and have the county bill us back the full portion, and then we'll assess the 25% to the two property owners, one being the county and the other one being Norman Snodgrass. We spoke with him, he's willing. Said it was a great deal. So we're on board with him, so basically looking for that approval from county today as well.
So that 25% is split between the property north of Kingston and property, I'm not Kingston, Washington, and so ours is 2,500.
Yeah, correct, roughly around 2,500.
Will be our share.
Yep.
Okay.
Are you doing any work under the ground? It's just strictly paving, is that?
Yeah,
25%, right?
but it's split between
25%.
properties.
Between two
So
properties.
Swears would actually be close.
Will be paying 2,600 and we'll be paying 26.
Correct. Yep.
So should this petition waiver agreement say
2,600 instead of.
should it say 25%, or should it actually say 12.5%? Because the county would be half of the 12, 25%.
Want to clarify that.
Yeah, I know that was a topic last night at our meeting too. City administrator was heading this one up and he couldn't make it today, so I'm trying to fill in for him the best I can.
Or do we take the percentage out and just go back to the current city assessment policy period, and not put in that percentage?
I think that would be fair language as well. It's 25% of total project cost and then split amongst the two owners, so I think we could just use what you said as well.
Yep, and this was kind of a last minute petition and waiver, where spoke with Casey and with the city administrator, Jake and stuff. Speaking with him on Friday afternoon is when we talked about this petition and waiver agreement, getting this to the board right away. So it's last minute kind of put together and submittal here today. But essentially, without this taking place without having this cost participation. You know, the city's looking at, not repaving East Washington Street at the same time, going out and rebidding it and paving that surface later. The impacts to the county is then we'd have to do a saw cut along East Washington Street, you patch it back in, the following year it gets ripped up again and gets repaved at more than likely a substantially higher cost. So I think it's in the county's best interest, city and, everyone's best interest to keep this part of the current project and to go ahead and do this.
Well, we requested RFP that we were gonna pay for payment. That was in the estimate, correct?
It was, yeah, so the original bid and the estimate did include it, but the discussion with the city was that they were
Well, I
gonna.
understand the situation with the city, you guys need to, in order to be consistent in your assessment policy.
Right, I guess I wasn't aware that you guys
Yeah,
were paying for it, but.
Yeah, we never.
That's what the bid was, is that the bid came in, that we were gonna pay for it all.
The bid included all the numbers, but the discussion with the city has always been that they were gonna pay for their portion of that paving.
Right.
Yeah,
I
this-
thought we promised that we were gonna pay for the paving.
The city
Back in
council,
May.
May,
They reimbursed
back in May.
No,
at a
no,
commissioner meeting here,
no, at the
Well,
city
no,
council.
but private, but
okay, because I was gonna say the meeting Brian referred to in May 23rd last year. Actually just went back and watched the video to make certain I was on the right track here, but the city did say we take care of the street paving. All other utilities that would be affected by your parking lot project were gonna be at your cost. We didn't say a date or a time when we were gonna do it, though. I didn't actually budget to do it this year, but we can make it on this path we're looking at today. And in all fairness and honesty to any other property owner in the town, it'd be the proper way to go about it.
Well, I think we should move forward. with this.
so just another question on the rest of the East Washington project. Are we gonna be assessed on that too?
Uh,
There's no other,
It's just strictly paving.
it's just I know this is just for by the west end of our parking.
this one block right outside the front door.
But your other project isn't that,
Okay, on Courthouse Square over here. Yes, yep, you guys have got an assessment.
so we're
notice
gonna
on
get
that.
assessed for that. besides-
Correct, correct.
Okay,
Yep,
what kind of assessment are we gonna get for that?
I think, yeah, about 4,000.
That'd be half of that street too, because the Bank of the West is the other half of the street.
Well, Bank of the West and Caledonia
There's others,
Oil
yeah.
and-
But there's others that.
Yeah, and actually with our Grove and Marshall project, we're only coming the road width straight into county property. We're not going west and east on Courthouse Square there, so they definitely have assessments on other parts of that project, but nothing more.
The only reason you're coming into Courthouse Square is to make the hookup for utilities.
Right, pretty much
It wasn't
stormwater.
because it needs to be paid, because it didn't that whole be done when we did the county justice center. But to make the hookups for what you're gonna do as far as the sewer and the water and whatnot,
Right,
you gotta come into Courthouse Square.
upsizing water mains, yep, new storm sewers.
So is the city gonna keep that Washington and part of Marshall by our courthouse and west parking lot two-way or one-way?
It's still gonna remain a two-way. It's gonna be one-sided parking on the north side of the street.
So that's gonna remain to the one side of part.
Yeah.
Gonna be kind of tight there, ain't it?
So the encroachment agreement, I believe, is 5 feet. So is it 7, 5 or 7, but either way, less than a drive lane or park lane.
7 feet, but 2 feet of that is the curb and gutter.
Sure. Yep, so still two-way traffic with parking on one side now instead of
Norms,
Norman said, correct.
Yeah, so here's the 2014, because this one actually has parking both sides, but so essentially this line is gonna get moved up 7 feet, so these vehicles down here won't be able to park there anymore in the future. And then the actual drive width would remain, essentially the same as what's open right here, and then parking would remain on that north side. So the city's assessment for this project would be just for, this portion of Washington Street, the parking lot, this would remain county 100% paid for that because this is county owned. And then the Marshall Street, Grove Street project, this city's assessment to the county is just essentially for this right of way width along Marshall Street. So that's 66 feet of frontage.
Look, your main project is Grove.
Correct.
Washington was never on the agenda
No,
until you forced the issue.
pretty much, but
Washington is in really bad shape. It's gonna be on the agenda.
I was under the.
Right, it's-
Washington was part of. All of Washington was in your project, but it's not. It's just our part.
Yep,
Your part is Grove and Marshall.
yep, their project is here and here.
All right.
The end result is, instead of 296, 165, the county's cost is 278, 147, because we're subtracting $2,574. That we have to pay the city on our assessment. We're subtracting the $18,018.
Yes,
Might as well say we're subtracting the full 20,592 and then paying back the $2,574.
right.
You're collecting the 2575 from Norm on your own.
So do we want on that paragraph 4 of this petition to say somehow to say that we're paying 12.5% instead of the 25%? I mean, is that, or clarify this then?
That'd be a little confusing.
Yeah,
Or our share, let's put down, we pay our share of the 25%, which we have is
I think that's fair.
kind of what we're talking about.
Ryan had said we'll just pay according to the city policy, so that would.
We use that term. So
It'd be nice to have dollar,
be nice.
some percentages in there. Just.
But with,
Well, I think the 25% covers it. I mean, whether we have cost overruns or,
Well, that's true.
I mean, typically we don't run under budget too much, but there is possibility.
with the clarification, what's the feeling of the board?
I think we should go for it.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
We authorize the signature of this petition, is basically what it's saying, Greg, okay? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion or question? There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried 3-1, okay?
So is that with a language change? Or what?
Yeah, that is with the 25%.
City pays half of the 25%.
Yeah.
Let's just go based on city assessment policy.
I think it.
Yeah.
You wanna revise that, Greg, or?
How would you like me to revise that? Is it in policy or?
Yeah, I would. I think we should go that route.
With city policy,
According to city assessment policy.
makes sense. Agree with that? Everybody's still on the same vote?
Yep.
Okay, so that's the only,
Already
how
voted,
it's
so
gonna
we're
be
just-
written. How it's gonna be written, then I guess let's clarify that. Okay.
Is the whole petition thing, that's, I understand why we're doing it, I get that. Just doesn't look good from a public point of view when we're waiving our petition for a public hearing. They're gonna ask, well, what are you doing? Why are you waiving your right to a?
Well,
But I
sometimes,
understand why, I get it, because it's after the fact and we need to get this going and.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it can be explained.
sometimes a lot of business, done on amounts, and when it's big amounts. 2,500 big amount for some. And, I think it kind of covers it, like you say. Okay,
Thank you, Casey.
Thanks, Casey.
Thank you guys.
okay, moving back to number 2, consider approval to order salt through the cooperative purchasing venture. Brian,
okay, so So Houston County, at one point, we used to order salt directly through, we'd go out and do quotes with the salt suppliers on our own. We wouldn't go through the state bid for cooperative purchasing venue for salt. Then around 2009, give or take, when the county tried doing that, we didn't get any bid on salt and we ended up paying about triple the cost of salt. When there's a salt shortage, if you're on your own, you're the one that's not going to get any bidders, and that price can be jacked way up. So since that time, Houston County's gotten on the cooperative purchase venue for salt, which all the salt suppliers, they look at bids and they bid Houston County for each of our 4 locations, as if, you know, they can get that salt wherever they want. They can bring it from or from La Crosse or Winona, maybe the cities or Duluth. But the number that we would like to submit for this next year is 1,560 ton of salt, which is 260 more ton than what we got this last winter. The reason being a couple reasons. One is we're going to end up using 120% of our salt bid this year, which is our maximum amount. If we go over that, then you negotiate a price with the suppliers, and the suppliers for the counties that are negotiating prices this year, they're paying more than double to go over that 120%. The 1,560 ton, that is still substantially below our historical average. In the past, we've ordered about 2,600 ton of salt per year. We really dropped that number down this year because we had more salt in storage than what we typically did going into the winters. So we want to go up 20%, but it's still substantially below our historic average on the salt usage. So that is the numbers I'd like to get approval to go, and then get the stuff submitted to the state here this week so we can get on that.
Do you do much salt and mixing anymore, or what percentage if you do?
Yep. So most of our piles are mixed 3 parts sand, 1 part salt. Some of the piles are 2 to 1. In the early winter and in the spring months, we try to use less sand. Maybe go to pure salt on the roadways, especially in the Crescent area, trying not to dump a lot more sediment on there when the Pine Creek is already impaired for sediment load. So we're trying to go pure salt in the Crescent area and stuff, and that's when you get more melting power with the sun and stuff, so you don't need as much out there either. So but besides that, we do still mix.
Feeling of the board. Get the bids for the purchase. Is there a second? I'll second it. Discussion.
This is in the budget.
Yes. And actually a lot of this, a lot of the salt for the current contract will get in the fall. So from this, a lot of this salt we won't get until into 2024.
But we have a price fixed.
Yep, the price gets fixed, yes.
So it's fixed, so if we don't use it, you still have to.
So we need to purchase between the 80 to 120%. So anything below that,
Well, we committed to 80% at
we're
least.
committed to 80%, yeah.
Okay.
So 80% would be down to 1,300 ton, which is our baseline bid from this year.
Again.
So,
So you. Good. Further question, discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Number 3, consider approving the low quote for liquid chloride.
So we opened bids for liquid calcium chloride yesterday. We received 3 quotes on that. The low quote, Bluff Country Brine, at $1.28 per gallon delivered to Caledonia, $1.29 per gallon delivered to Spring Grove, $1.49 per gallon applied to roadways. Typically what we do is we get the truck delivered to Caledonia and then we apply it ourselves from there.
So you don't take any to Spring Grove or?
So usually we'll have them deliver it here. We'll load it up in our
and then-
tanks that are stored here and then we just haul it to
Oh,
wherever we
okay.
need it. So
Where you need it. Storage, you have enough storage here at the facility.
we have the storage here. We're set up here. Our chloride truck and the operator usually will start his day out of Caledonia. So it makes sense to do that.
It's all Caledonia, one of the three separate prices.
Exactly. I was gonna ask the same.
So because we do have a tank in Spring Grove, and then we also if we want them to, if we have some issues with our chloride truck, it's an old truck, we have issues, if we need them to apply it for us, we get that cost, so.
But back when these things were first started, you may not have had the adequate storage at Caledonia. And then also your truck starts from Caledonia, so in case, instead of driving over to Spring Grove to get it, haul it to a Crescent. Do it from here. Any other thoughts, comments?
It just seems strange if we know we're gonna have it all shipped to Caledonia. why would we have to do something?
Well, and then for the bidders, they'd like to know that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and we work with all three of these bidders, they're the same ones we've used for years and stuff, but they know that we're usually gonna get it delivered to our shop in Caledonia.
But it's nice to have that option of using Spring Grove should the tank here not be available. Have a fair statement?
Yep.
Okay, what's the feeling of the board? We need it, and some of the time, I think I asked Sheila during finance this morning, sometimes we do it for townships and then we bill them if we.
Yes, so we actually apply more chloride on the township roads where we do in our own county system. The overall quantity that goes out, so more than half the chloride that we get, we bill back to townships.
Piece of information. Feeling of the board.
Make the motion to approve the low bid.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. 3-1. Number 4, consider approving a low quote from MP Asphalt Maintenance for CP 2023-04 for crack filling. The scheduled roads are County 3, County 33, County 8, County 26, East and West, and County 15. I believe there was this is brought back for clarification.
Yeah, so this time we tabled it previously. So the low bid from MP Asphalt Maintenance came in at $1.70 a pound, total bid price of $28,900. The second bid, or the other three bidders are all at $60,000 plus. So MP Asphalt's bid was less than half the cost of the other three bidders. So want to have some time to do some more evaluation on it. Went back and looked at what we paid for a unit price on crack sealing from 2 years ago. Last we did a different product, so it was tough to compare that way. But from 2 years ago, MP Asphalt's price about 25% higher than that. So it's not like their price is substantially lower than what we've been paying. It's the other ones prices have really jumped. When I checked with reference checks, I reached out to 4 counties that they've done work for. And 3 out of those 4 counties got back to me. One said they did a really good job. Second county said that they did an okay, acceptable job. They're lacking a little bit, maybe more on the traffic control side of things, but not that they couldn't work. You just need to keep an eye on them a little bit more. Third county said, their work was a little bit, could lacking on a few different fronts. But overall, 2 out of 3, gave positive feedback, said they would definitely, work with them again. When we look at the cost of what this is, the roadways that they'll be doing the work on, and, our own oversight on the staff, we could definitely have someone out there full-time with them, make sure to do it correctly for cheaper than hiring the next contractor that has less to award the bid for MP asphalt maintenance. And then we just know that we'll need to be out there and potentially provide extra oversight. Either way, we'll make sure that the work gets done correctly in a good manner, and I don't have any concerns with going with them.
Bid was 60,000 cheap.
It was 28,900 versus the second bid of 62,390. So, yeah, 31,500
Double.
cheaper.
I'll make a motion to accept MP asphalt maintenance. Crack filling.
Is there a second? Second, for the discussion. There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Number 5, consider approving pavement marking from Sir Lines a lot. Farner, asphalt sealer, and Minda.
Yeah, so we went out and went out for bid on pavement markings, and MnDOT also has capacity to do some pavement markings for the county if we wanted to. So the reason why I didn't put make a recommendation of the low bid on this one, really want to have a little bit of discussion on this, because some of it there might be an advantage of going with MnDOT. So low bid for Sir Lines a lot, $190,892.67. Our engineer's estimate was $157,033.21. So our estimate, we increased numbers by, I believe, 10% from last year's numbers to get to the 157. And the bids ultimately came in another 20% above that. So pavement marking prices have jumped up around the state here this last year. We also have been speaking with MnDOT about them potentially being able to do some pavement markings for us. And MnDOT has really good prices to do pavement markings on the straight line, the rural highways where you're doing the fog lines and the center lines. But within municipalities, they don't do all the different symbols in latex. They do the symbols in epoxy, and their price is substantially higher. So we kind of have a couple different options. One would be to hire Sir Lines a lot, have them do everything. One would be hire MnDOT and have MnDOT do everything. MnDOT would be
What's their
about
price for doing everything?
$203,725.84. So MnDOT doing everything would be about 14,000 higher than 13,000 higher than Sir Lines a lot. The advantage of going with MnDOT is that we would have epoxy symbols at all, or everything would be epoxy. So the crosswalks would have epoxy paint, the all the arrows, the bike symbols and stuff within La Crescent. These symbols are primarily crosswalks in Caledonia and La Crescent. They would have epoxy paint instead of latex, which holds up a lot better. So reflectivity plow off the glass beads that go on that, so you don't have the night reflectivity. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but the paint itself sticks to the road better by having the epoxy versus the latex. So these last a little bit longer into the fall and through the winter months, where currently the latex comes off. So is it worth it to spend an extra 13,000? I'm not sure if it is or not. It's nice to have that paint last longer. The other option is to reject both Sir Lines a lot and Farner, and go to MnDOT and say we'd want to do our work, but we only want the fog lines and the center lines out there, do the rural areas, do the line work, do not do the symbol painting. And then we'd have to go out there and try to get quotes for the symbols only. Those prices would come back up higher for the other companies because they're not going to be in the area doing other work. So I don't know that we would save by hiring MnDOT and going out for quotes on the symbols, but that's kind of the third option. So So kind of wanted to get the feeling of the board and have some discussion. Do we want to go with the low bid with the symbols that aren't gonna last as long? Do we want to pay a little bit more for symbols that are gonna, last longer in the towns? Or do we want to do some type of combination?
You're talking longer, talking 3, 5 years.
The epoxy, it's gonna wear off we're still gonna need to go back and repaint them with latex again next year. A lot of that paint's gonna be there, but especially at like the intersections that you have turning movements with the vehicle, that stuff's still gonna wear off. I would say you probably would have 80 to 90% of the epoxy would remain at the end of this year. Even in those turning movement areas. The remaining stuff will just be, faded, a little bit worn down, but they're gonna still be, 95% plus there. Versus the latex, when you do that, in the turning areas, that paint can be worn off within a couple months of being put down.
When we advertise for bids, did we ask for options on latex versus epoxy? Or did we only ask for?
We only asked for latex. We didn't ask for epoxy. And MinDOT kind of gave us their numbers saying we have capacity, we can do it, but we only do epoxy. So we did ask MinDOT if they would do latex, and they said not for the symbols, they only do epoxy.
So lines a lot. Do epoxy.
I'm sure that they would if I
Seeing as how
talk to them
we
about that.
advertised for latex, we should stick with Sir Lancelot and we'll bid, just be done with it. Because can't be changing our mind afterwards.
And we can definitely go back and talk to Sir Lancelot too and get a price for epoxy if we want to do a change order that way, if we're interested in that, but otherwise.
I think for this year, we should just go with what we asked for. And then next year, give the people, when they do the bidding deal. Give us prices both ways. But right now, we're kind of guessing at what it would cost for the epoxy. I just see that labor is getting more expensive, especially when they're doing these decals. You gotta cut pipe cones out, you gotta do the spray painting, and I was listening to something this morning, the cost of labor is getting more, and of course, cost of the paint, but for them to come in and get it done, it's a benefit to have it all done for one contractor instead of trying to have a straight line done by MinDOT. Somebody else come in for something else, who knows when it's gonna get done. When the disruption comes to town, it's done in a short time instead of this week, and then 2 weeks later comes another disruption. Just a thought.
I'll make a motion then that would go as right?
So lines a lot.
Go there, correct.
Yep.
Is there a second
I'll second them.
discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Number 6. We approve quotes from Nest Pumping and Porta Potty Rentals for Wildcat Botcher Park to install a porta potty system. They're the only bidder.
Yep, so we had 3 different bidders on that. So Nest was the low bid for Wildcat. And then for so they came in at $2,853.56, and that's for 6 months for 3 regular restrooms, 1 handicap. Second bid came in at $3,221.26. At Bob Botcher Park, again, same 6 months, but 1 restroom out there. Nest Pumping and Porta Potty came in at $510, which was the same price as Hackett's Porta Potty. Colin Cotta from Hackett's Porta Potty. So the same price for Bob Botcher Park for the 2 bidders. Now, they each do stuff a little bit different with how they provide the maintenance on those units. But because Nest was low on Wildcat, my recommendation is to use, they've been doing work down there. They've done a good job. My recommendation is to stick with the same contractor for both parks. You know, if you have an issue, you call the same person, no matter, you know, which park it is. So my recommendations go with Nest Pumping for both.
We always provided a porta potty at Orchard Park.
That was added last year, 2 years ago, I think last year, yeah.
Where does that come out of? Parks.
Budget part.
They're starting to get used more and more, and the request is, the discussion was, and last year we put it into. Because we cleaned it up a lot,
We cleaned it up. We've got a picnic area now. That people can stop and use the picnic tables and. Facilitate and put in porta potty.
Make a motion to go with Nest Pumping for both. Wow, okay.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Number 7. Consider approving a letter of resolution number 2312, Houston County request for environment and natural resources trust fund. Those letters, funding.
Yeah, so this is,
Coming up here.
yep, so this is the discussion that we had 2 weeks ago regarding the LCCMR, the Legislative Citizens Commission on Minnesota Resources, funding opportunity. So they have, submittal is due by March 31st. Spoke to the board here a couple weeks ago about a few different potential options that we could apply for. You know, paving at Wildcat Park, the restroom facility on the south side at Wildcat Park. And then we also talked, you know, about we could potentially pursue, you know, trails or stuff elsewhere with this money. It's kind of a, you know, fairly wide open, broad range of stuff we can apply for. What we put together is a request for $500,000 to repave the entrance road into Wildcat Park. That'd be all the pavement going from Trunk Highway 26 into the boat landing. Also pave the parking area and the RV dump station. The RV dump station is just a little small pull-off area down there. So that shows that it's not only just some maintenance of that road entrance. We're actually going to be looking at doing some additional improvement with the paving out there to pave that parking lot that's heavily used during the summer months with all the visitors and the boat users out there. I think also, you know, we're collecting that fee out there for the boat launch, and we want to show improvements to the park for the users of that boat launch. The second area then, the bathroom on the south side of the facility. So that'll be to, you know, there used to be the pit toilets. Now it's the porta potties that were just approved for this year. Again, making that improvement. So we have some nice bathrooms down there for the park users. So that is the request as we have it put together. We can modify this however you want to see fit. But this park request is due by the 31st. So it's due on Friday. So.
There's a second.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
So in the letter, you say that you may or may not have to have matching monies.
So this doesn't show that there's any matching money required. So it is a lengthy process. For the selection, there's different stuff. So what they ultimately provide to us at the end, they might not provide the full amount. So there might be some local match that might be required.
Here in paragraph 3, we have the financial capability to match, if any.
Yeah.
Adequate construction. So that's kind of what you mean by that question.
Yep, and really what at this point, essentially what the local match is our staff time for the design and the oversight of the inspection and everything. We're not submitting for our own staff time for any of getting reimbursement for our own inspection and design. So that'll be, you know, even if it's a 15% in-kind match or 20% in-kind match, we should be covered that way just with our own management of it.
All right. Any other questions? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Number 8 was pulled at the beginning of the meeting. Number 9. Consider approving donation to the Extension Tesmer Farm Safety Day for the total of $37.70, as was amended at the beginning.
I'll make that a motion and thank those that donated.
Those are all donations. Is there a second? Okay, further discussion. There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay, carried. And Donna, you have in front of us, consider approving application and resolution 2313 for Minnesota lawful gambling permit. Approval of Lancer Youth Hockey, Bell Hockey Wrong Association.
Yep, Commissioners, this was asked by presented to me by Don Hogan from La Crescent Lancer Youth Hockey Association to get this permit for a benefit to be held at the barn on South Ridge on 7442 County 25 Boulevard, La Crescent. And the only thing I can say is he's got all the permit filled out. We did not have the signature of the township, but last night they had a meeting and they signed the permit application, and the clerk is going to bring it up to me this afternoon. But the benefit is to be held on April 29th for Hayden Beach, who has cancer. So they're going to have a cancer benefit, and this is just for a one-day thing to hold the benefit at the barn in South Ridge.
Motion, we approve that.
Motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion. Being none, all in favor say aye. Aye, opposed say nay. Carried. Number 11 is discuss possible ARPA funding. Carol.
Well, you got a dead battery there or what?
Been working it too hard.
Okay, so I guess I'm thinking that the board would like to make a few final decisions on the ARPA funding. You have, everyone have theirs from last week?
I do not.
I think I know where we're at.
Okay.
So I don't have mine, but I know where we're at.
Well, we were thinking of doing 8,000 for childcare.
Yep.
And we did already start advertising that, and providers are very thankful. So we're getting really good feedback on that. We got immediate, really good feedback on that. So thank you.
We did make
No,
those-
it's at the work group session, so
But I make a motion that we approve the 8,000 of ARPA dollars towards the childcare. Training expense.
Second.
Say
Further
up
dis-
to.
further
Up
discussion,
to 8,000. There you go.
okay, further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, say nay. Carried. And what else did you have there for?
County fair.
We got
yes,
that.
the county fair, I'm looking at the ones on the first side. I don't know about the mobile radios yet. The ADA restrooms, I haven't gotten a final, but it looks to be probably more like 55,000 than the 80,000 that's in there.
Yeah, because everything on this side's been approved. It just
Green
hasn't
side.
been paid, correct?
Right, kind of a,
Everything in the yellow hasn't been approved.
Correct.
well, the yellow has been approved now. Because
What?
the Selco, the 90,000.
Oh, yeah,
No.
that
Yeah.
part's been approved.
That was
We
approved.
committed.
The yellow actually kind of meant the 2023,
Okay,
the others were the
yeah, 'cause the
2022.
90,000's already been committed for Selco.
Mm-hmm. And then, there's the 8,000 for the childcare, and I don't know if the board wanted to keep that 300,000, just kind of well, it'd be less the $8,000. Just keep it there as a kind of a placeholder.
The 300,000, keep
other-
it as a placeholder and then
Mhm.
take 8,000 off of that. Yep. Keep a running tally on that.
Right.
Have we paid Selco already?
Well,
We're
they go
doing it-
quarterly and this is a
Okay.
3-year. This is a 3-year deal,
Commit.
so it's 30,000
Per year.
per year for the next 3 years with it being billed quarterly through Selco and then it goes to the libraries. They pay the libraries.
Well,
Want to clarify that.
it's been discussed about the fair, county fair, giving them some money, and I think this is our one opportunity to give them a one-time donation. And seeing as how their building season, maintenance season's coming up here, I think 100,000 would be a fair amount to donate to them. Seeing as how this is an opportunity for us to do that, and I would specify to make it for capital improvements, whether that be maintenance of current buildings or to put towards building a new building.
They had a fairly detailed list
Yeah,
that they had provided,
right.
which
Yeah.
I
And
think,
it's not meant to subsidize their fair expense per se, as far as putting on the fair. It's just for capital improvements, maintenance.
Most of that list is maintenance.
Yep. And I think that'd be appropriate.
Anything you're putting a new roof on.
Mhm.
I mean, it's, some of it wasn't really what you call capital. I mean, it's-
I talked to one of the fair board members and he gave me a couple ideas that they were talking about doing, making some improvements or putting it towards a new beef building, so.
and
You
actually,
give them 100,000, they might use it for different stuff.
But it's something that's long lasting. That's kind of what my barometer is, to be honest with you. So it's something that will be lasting. So long, folks do that, maintenance does that.
I think the townships all gets paid with where board $7,500. $750 each.
All the townships usually give a little bit. They always give to them in the historical society and so on, so,
but just to note that it's actually to the Houston County Ag Society for the Houston County Fair Board. Because that's who
That'd
we
be the
actually.
correct motion to make is, I make that a motion to donate 100,000 to the Houston County Ag Society for capital improvements.
Okay. Further discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Those against, say nay. Carried, so I'll be going over to the paid file. Okay,
The technology is public health and human services. $42,083 is for everything. We've got 31,000 in their budget already. So I think we should drop that to $10,000. And say that's enough.
Well, I was just thinking about after yesterday's meeting, legislative, you attended legislative update. I would hold off on the 10,000 too, just because I think there's gonna be some funding coming for technology to human services here.
There's a potential.
Right, I think
All I'm saying is we cut the 42 down to 10 for future,
that's fine.
but not approved yet.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I thought you wanted to approve.
No, no, no.
but the amount in their budget is
No, I get that.
We had that department meeting yesterday. I talked about trying to get some grants.
Yeah, and they brought that up at legislative yesterday that there was gonna be possible.
Let's-
Well, no, let's tell you, I was so disappointed for that.
that's, but you get, I got pages.
But everything they promised, they backtracked on all.
Yep.
Armor radios, it went from 275 million to 1 million.
Unbelievable. That was.
Well,
Just change it to 10,000.
just,
Yeah, and there doesn't need to be a motion on that.
no.
That's just our,
would it change that
Tally.
to 10 even then, Bob, as consideration?
I think so.
Consensus? All right,
Oh, then yes, the consensus and
Well, they'll just changing that number to 10.
And that'll increase our other number a little bit too, so.
And all this is gonna change when we build and, you know, the 50,000
Yep.
was, we had 80 committed. Right, for that, yeah.
Right, for the bathroom, and then, I mean, but would you want to take the money, the difference between there and put it to the space utilization project to cover the total for that, so that we don't have to take that out of somewhere else?
That'd be fine.
That will work.
Need a motion on that one? We have, because we already approved 50.
Right,
And do we even have, we don't have a final number yet. Though.
No.
the space utilization study is
61,000.
61,
Okay, that's
it's in the minutes.
right.
I'll make a motion to
Allocate.
What?
To change the allocation. from
change the
50 to
allocation
60.
for the space utilization.
To the final cost.
50,000 to the final price of 61. I don't have the exact price in front of me.
Yeah, that's why I just said final price.
Yep,
Final.
okay.
final price.
Okay, that's a motion. Or a suggestion.
Motion.
Yep, motion. There a second?
so
And second, further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carry. Okay,
question.
but
With regard to something we've done in the past and it's starting to come creeping back. Do you think we should consider any additional funding to the food shelves that are getting hit hard in the price increase? I mean, it's a benefit to the county as far as the people that are in need. Which is what we are.
In 22 was gave them each $1,000.
And we don't have to decide today, but.
I think it, you know,
Let's give it food for thought. I'd be okay with that. As time goes on, we'll maybe see something from the state. Who knows?
but I think,
So we did 5 the last time. Caledonia, Holka, Houston, La Crescent, Spring Grove.
so let's keep that on our back of the range ideas for next time we have ARPA discussion, because they are getting hit hard, and anything can, buying stuff is getting tough for them. So, good point.
Getting hit hard. As far as more people coming in and their costs are going up.
Yep.
Also, the suppliers are starting to, they're getting limited on their supply.
Good points. Okay, anything else, Carol?
Just. We still have the $80,000 for the boardroom technology that I'll touch base with Andy to see if he's gotten any additional information on that. The board would need to make the choice of moving the last 3 in the blue down to use the capital improvement funds as opposed to ARPA. Which, you know, you have the sheet here, we'll be using approximately, I guess I'd probably say $200,000 for the roof, just because it came in at 170, whatever, but I mean, so that's what I had put in here.
Okay.
So the capital improvement reserve that we have in our fund balance total 670,000.
Yep.
So if you left the $230,000 for the west lot improvements, that's going to run another 60. Right, 290,
Yeah.
or a little bit less because of that.
40 something now.
Okay,
After all the horse around with the city killing.
We committed 230. I want to leave. I recommend we just leave it.
leave it at that. So then the difference between that and the IT computer hardware, I'm not sure exactly what that all entails. It was kind of like the annual budget within the IT budget that was taken out to use some sort of other funding when we were doing the budgeting. So I'm not sure exactly what that is, so we'll get some more detail on that, but I'm almost thinking those 3 should last items in blue should come from the capital improvement reserves rather than ARPA funding.
That's fine. Move back up to the west lot. Yeah. I understand you want to leave that 230 as part of ARPA.
That's
And
what
take
we
the-
committed.
take the 47,000.
That's what we
Yeah.
committed for.
I know it, I know it. He's got to take it out down here, but you want to leave it back in.
You got, oh, you took
Well,
230 out?
I took the green just to show you what would happen if you move that whole amount to our other reserve. But since
Oh, so you added it back in.
Right.
in ARPA funding, but then it would come off our capital improvement reserve.
Right.
So
I think that would,
I think since you appropriated the 230. It'd be okay to leave it. It just depends on what kind of plans you have for the remainder of ARPA. I mean,
Well, we're gonna have a vestibule we gotta put in there. That's gonna cost.
mhm. So if you keep the 230,000 in there, that brings the available down to what, 280. I don't know if there was any really thoughts about doing any type of, for the like Fintech with their projects for the broadband. I mean, that bringing it down to the 280 kind of limits what you have left to
That's
use.
true.
We had that 30,000 or so based on technology. We're at 310.
Mhm.
Give or take.
And that decision doesn't have to be made today, that I can put together, the sheet with these changes, and then you can take a look at what, it would be if we took that off and took it out of here.
How much we got in the capital?
670.
670.
So we want to have everything out of the capital improvements, would be 514,000, so we'd have 107,000. No.
The 514 is if we took out the 230 committed to the west parking lot, the 230 would have to come off the 679.45, correct?
Mhm.
That would leave us a balance of
40.
Well,
Yeah.
440 less the others, depending on what the price would be that came in for the
440,000.
boiler replacement, and yeah.
47,000. 74,000.
Well, I guess I don't care. You could take it out and put it under capital.
I think we need the 230 out of ARPA and take the remaining.
Out of that.
All right.
The other three fine comes out of capital. That leaves us over 300,000. I know Fillmore County did a project for broadband. They participated $75,000 on that broadband project that they got back.
See, we've done that before too.
Yeah, with this.
The EDA did a match to a Centec of 75,000, and it was a 0% interest loan from the county, but the EDA recommended it, and then they paid us back. So we too have done that, which we could
And-
still do that with the EDA pot of money in
Right.
the future. I think we were leaning less towards ARPA just because the state has some other broadband initiatives out there, and we still have that area of Houston County that's tied up because of that other project. That's the real issue.
That's the one.
Not the other project, the other company not doing it.
Not doing,
Mhm.
not doing
I
anything.
shouldn't
Not
say
doing
project.
anything,
It sounded
yeah.
like they're not doing the project, but they won't bow out. And they have,
After yesterday's legislative session, they cut that way back too.
Yeah.
Broadband down to 100 million instead of 270, so, and it's gonna be only a 60-40 split, 40 for rural and 60 for urban, which to me is backwards. It should be the
Backwards.
other way around, because I can't see urban doesn't have the more broadband in place already, the rural areas where it's needed. I mean, we're talking like $30 million here, $20 million, that's nothing.
Especially when you're looking at all these different counties. and different-
Yeah. If any of our providers needed matching money that they, just to show a match that they were willing to get paid back at the 0% interest, we could consider that again, just through the EDA. Usually it's the border to border where they're required the match, but see, they won't be able to do it in that area until after 2026.
With the ARPA dollars, we could actually make it a match that they don't have to pay.
Right.
We could, but they seem to have the means to pay it back, so.
Well, sure, but if it comes to that.
Yeah.
We could participate, say $100,000 on a project.
Right, the
to
problem,
to make the grant more feasible from the state.
yeah, the problem is we've got to have the project, and so much of the area that needs it is tied up because of that other company.
That's. Cause I got some here from a company that can do it, but you can't do anything with it until that company lets off.
I mean, they could do something there if they were gonna pay for it themselves, but we can't double dip with federal or state dollars in that area is the issue.
Got ARPA money, so I can get it.
No, you
Our
can't.
entity to do the personal request. For hooking up. Get a $25,000 grant.
You can apply,
Individuals have to,
individuals will apply, and then what DEED is gonna do, from my understanding, is they're gonna look at the areas of the states where there's been the most requests. And that's where they're gonna focus the projects on.
this is a case where he's got it on either side of him, but they won't bring it to his house.
I know,
That's where the $25,000. Yeah. To give it to their house, when it's there, but they won't bring it to.
right, but it sounds like they're gonna look at all the people that want that, cause if you do the math, it's gonna end up being about, if I did my math correctly, I think it's about 600 households. So you're competing with all of the other, I mean, I do think you should do it and apply, but you'll be competing with all of the other households out there that are in your same boat.
When do I want to get the application?
The,
Yeah, if you wanna come by my office, I'll find it and print it off for you.
Well, Allison, maybe I should give you, this came in the mail yesterday to me from PCS Technologies, which is providing wireless broadband solutions with antennas instead of having cable in the ground. Now, I skimmed it, and I said, well, gee, it looks like a great idea. But then I remembered that area that is covered or so-called taken by this outside company. But could this work for Greg's dilemma? Because I've seen these in Wisconsin where I started down the road and here's these little antennas on top of power poles, about yay tall, they got 4 wires going out, and they transmit to these different places. Now, where should I was gonna give this to Andy and see if it's something we could do, or maybe EDA should look at it. I don't know.
I know
It's
Scott,
about my pay grade.
Scott County did a big broadband project on that same idea of
Wireless?
using wireless antenna, but their topography is a little different than ours.
Yeah,
Exactly.
our topography, you know,
Our topography with the bluffs and the valleys,
you can put an antenna on, but you
yeah.
know, there's no
I mean,
satellite
you
there.
get some off an antenna, don't you, right now? From Ricky or?
here comes through, no, I don't get nothing from there.
No,
It's full. Can't go on.
okay.
Or
But
just go to phone company, because would they be interested in this?
I mean, I can look at it, I think they've sent me the same thing, but I think like Carol's saying, I don't know if it would be
piece
effective here, just because the places that really need it are,
In the back?
yeah.
they're down in the cracks.
Yeah,
Fiber optic and Freebird, so I'm sure they can work down there, them towers.
Okay, well, it's. We're back on the track here, I guess. So
okay, so next week, I guess that what I'm probably going to do is send a request on the capital improvement funds. To make sure that we do get that on the list, that yes, we're gonna do that.
Okay.
Heating pump. Yeah, we've approved the heating pump. I'm gonna look for I think we have some boiler replacements here in this building, and that's, this last one's on there. We had to do boiler replacement in the Justice Center last year, but I think we have something here. And I'll find out costs, and we should have the Fowler and Hammer billing because they did fix the issue with the 2 inches off or inch off, whatever it was. They came and fixed that.
Okay.
So we should be able to get more on that.
Correct the amount of the.
Thanks. Mm-hmm. Yep. So
Okay.
we'll just keep working on it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we had the 2 motions, by Allison, for 8,000 and 100.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the
And then the
make up the
motion,
difference on the space utilization.
yes,
Yeah. Has-
Okay. The 10,000 on that technology.
Well,
Yeah,
just
so
discussion.
That was discussion.
That was just discussion.
Going on the green. Okay. Doesn't look like any closing comment. We'll get into discussion. I guess, 2 things. I did listen in on, AMC yesterday, and again, I was going from this, man. We won't know what's going on until May with them. Because of what's going on. After this meeting, Parks Committee is going to, have a continuation of our meeting Thursday. We have 4 applicants come in and present their, business plan, and, we're got it narrowed down to a couple. We're gonna have some discussion here after the meeting to come up with a recommendation to bring back to this board next week. So we can get that online. And then I showed that their letter I got from TCS. So. And then there's a letter I'm gonna take out to, Rob, all that, Veteran Services has to do with something that just came in the mail today, so. I'll get this to him, reference to a program for veterans. And, that's all I have. Here.
We got an extension meeting Thursday, Greg, Thursday night. At the Justice Center. I was just sat in on the legislative update yesterday, and like I said, that was very disappointing. All backtracking that we're hearing. AMC's done really good work in trying to help the counties get what they want across. It's just not coming to fruition on some of those things. But other than that, that's all I got.
Well, I listened to that same AMC deal. I got 3 pages of notes.
You wanna go through them all?
It was disappointing as far as what they're asking for versus the cuts that are being made now. You start getting closer to taking votes.
The armor radio one is the big.
That was huge.
That's big.
We had our department head meeting yesterday with various department heads. Nothing dramatic, I guess, as far as that's right. But things are going along and moving from there. I have meetings coming up with Felco tonight in Rochester. We had finance this morning. Regard to where we stand on that, it's a little early in the year to be talking about finance. It's only not even done with the first quarter. Things look to be running pretty close to where they're supposed to be. And one of the things talked about was the AEDs, those heart starter deals. Anyways, we were talking about those, and they did an inspection out at the county shop. There's our old and at least the batteries need replacing. And the pads, the pads that you put on the chest need replacing. So we're gonna do some checking on all the AEDs that we have in the county between this building out there, Meyer Building, any place that we have A, Bs, and see about their age and what, if anything, needs to be replaced.
It'd be something we could use ARPA money for.
And that's what that we just got to get for. And as you could.
Yep.
In the office, yeah.
I think we need to take an inventory of what we have and then
Well,
think
I
about
think-
where we should put them.
I think the deputies all carry.
That was a question. We weren't sure.
I think they do, because I know it's been used
Yeah.
on Bruno. And I've known for a fact it's been used.
Let's find out if the sheriff's department does have one, so then we find out how many we need. Then we find out the cost factor for ARPA.
And then one thing, I had a phone call from one of the lease owners for the airport, asking about the new ground lease agreement, which we have not, to the best of my knowledge, the county board hasn't approved this new agreement. And his concern was that from his perspective, the dramatic increase in insurance requirements that we have out there, going from $1 million to 3 million and $1.5 million. Going from 2 million to 3 million, and per occurrence going from 1 million to 1.5 million. His perspective was that when his lease runs out, which isn't for a few years, when this comes into play, it's going to cost him roughly $1,900 additional insurance fees for this. So something to take into consideration when it does come before the board as far as the new ground lease agreements with the renters out there. One thing that I would ask is that we have somebody that bought a hangar that is on leased ground and given the new lease agreement, but I think when you buy the hangar, since we haven't approved the new lease agreement, he's under the old lease agreement until that lease runs out and he has to sign a renewal. In my perspective, rather than boosting him on something that we haven't approved.
I agree. Whatever is going on at the time of the signing is what reading and we go from there. How long do these leases usually last? So
5 years.
5-year leases and then renewal.
Brian, you got a comment?
Yeah, if I could comment in, but there is some,
No.
So I know that Tess and Sam have met on some of the stuff within the old lease agreement, and they would like to see some of the terms changed or some language changed. The majority of it, I don't think it has any financial impact to the flyer, so I would recommend that maybe the any sales that they expire at the same time as the existing leases, they have some of the new language changes in there. But maybe not stuff that has a monetary value change, you know, like such as the new insurance rates that go up, maybe keep those rates the same, but at least have some of the other language change requirements that Sam and Tess are looking for. I would recommend that those go in the new lease. And I don't have the lease agreements in front of me to compare them side by side, but I know that they have some pretty substantial concerns on not changing some of the language on some things.
Got the new one, it's change, it's more name changes and date changes. Insurance was the biggest one, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, so I think we kept the insurance the same as the other ones. That might be satisfactory to everyone at this time.
Until their leases run out, because I think everybody's lease should start the same day, so we're not chasing leases down.
Yep, and for a little background on the insurance rates, so the county owns the land, the hangars are privately owned. Everything that's inside the hangars are privately owned. But the insurance is still in there because it's our land. If anything happens on it, you know, it's start getting involved with lawsuits and stuff. So so that insurance was a discussion point back when the original, every time we modified the lease, that insurance rate has been talked about as far as what should those limits be. or the insurance limits have been talked about. What should the limit be? So last we know, there was a bunch of discussions on, what should that cap be? Should it be the same as what the county's liability limits are? Which is where we get into that 1.5 and $3 million limits. It used to be, 1 million and 2 million. So those limits on the new lease are recommended to increase to match the county's liability limitations on that. Now, I know if the Flyers are going to come in and they're going to say, it's not practical to have a limit that high with the value of the buildings out there and what's inside that building. So I do anticipate that, even though it's only been one or maybe two that have mentioned anything at this point, I would anticipate that additional Flyers are going to come in and say, hey, this doesn't make sense for what we have. So that is something that, the county can set that limit at whatever level we want. But then there could be that gap in there where, their insurance is going to cover up so much, then the county would essentially be self-insured from that point till we get to where MCIT or the state.
And it's recommended by MCIT that we go to these amounts. All I'm saying is we aren't going to change the insurance for those that are on their lease currently until their new leases come up. The guy that bought one, from my perspective, takes over the lease on the hangar that he bought. He should stay at that insurance rate until that lease runs out, so that he gets the bump at the same time the rest of them. He shouldn't get subject to the bump that nobody else is getting subject to just because he bought it, because he inherits the lease.
I see a reason for having, leases. Set time, everybody doing it at the same time. So if I buy an airplane from you, after you have a 2 years of the 5 years used, I get the next 3 years at that same rate. And then when it comes time for everybody to be renewed, then we're all on the same page. Where if we start staggering, one guy's paying this, one guy's paying that, and we have issues. I like that idea, but how far along is this new lease plan for approval, or you want to just let it ride, or what?
So Donna's been, I don't know if Donna's on, Donna's been dealing with some of that stuff. I believe the current lease is expired in 2025 or 6. And then the status of this new one with the sale, do you have an update on that, Donna?
Yep, so the sale is, I believe, has been completed. We don't really hear much from the parties that bought it, but the biggest thing is he needs to, he's seen the new lease, and he does have an issue with the insurance, and he's gone and talked to the Flyers, and that's why, Bob, you've been contacted. And we are just waiting to hear, back from Brian or Tester, the board, to what we should do, because normally in the past, we have had all the leases come due at the same time, and it does make it a lot easier. And I have to check, I think it maybe is 25, but I'm not 100% sure. Polly, are you on? I think she's listening, but she may not be listening, but we've got the lease all ready to go, but we can, Tess and Sam have looked at the lease, and they made their changes that they wanted to make. And yes, it is not exact as exact as the same as the other ones that we've got. So it's up to you guys if you want to use the same lease and we just amend it. That's what we've been doing in the past. For anybody else? We've amended it.
Just to change it, amend the lease, that this is the same agreement given to another person, so we're just changing the name and the, what do you call it?
Correct.
And
Yep,
for that year or two until 25,
correct.
the person gets it at the old rates. We're all equals.
Correct. That's what we've been doing in the past.
Well, wait.
This person's lease is coming up that you're referring to?
In 2025 is when the lease on the hangar that he bought ends the same time as everybody else.
Yeah, that's fine. So, but that's when it should change, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're saying he's got to pay the higher insurance rates
Now,
I'm saying no. His rates don't change until everybody else's do. Cause he's just taking over the lead.
So why are they saying it has to be done now in midstream?
Who's saying that?
So, yeah, so when a sale happens from one party to another,
Oh, this is
that-
a sale situation.
so this is a sale, so when the new one takes over, does he have the same insurance as the previous
Well, no,
one, or
if
does
he-
that jump to the
he's
new?
He should have to pay the different rate, right?
No,
So he's new though.
he's taking over. It's
Yeah,
lease
but
will
it's
not
a-
run
it's
out
a-
until
it's a-
the same time
But
as
it's,
everybody.
it's a new person.
A new person, so, and this,
Lease,
Different owners.
so this, just the insurance amount or limitation cap only is what we're really talking about.
Right.
So it's not the lease rate that's charged them for the renting that's gonna stay the same, you know, as with everyone else. It's just the insurance cap, so.
That's
so-
what I
so-
was referring
yeah,
to.
so that's, you know,
He's the new, yeah.
Requirement.
Yep, so Salmon Tessa's originally. Their recommendation is to bump it up to the new rate. I did have some discussion with Tess a little bit, and in some ways it said, you know, it might make sense to keep that rate. That cap, the limit the same for the new owner, as the previous owner, and then when the lease is all expired. You know, look at changing it at that time. And really, that's where Don and I have kind of had some discussion there, and it's. You know, it's a board decision on kind of where do we wanna, does the county wanna take some risk by keeping that cap down lower?
Not taking any more risk than we are with the other leaseholders.
There won't be any more than the other ones, correct?
Same insurance rate as either neighboring hangar or any of the other hangars out there. It's the same insurance rate. Cause he bought it, he's gonna get penalized with the higher insurance rate because that's what the county is saying we wanna do. I have no problem with raising the rates when everybody's lease comes up. I have a problem with somebody that bought the building and now he has to pay a higher insurance premium because he bought it midterm of the lease and the county wants to raise his rates, but not anybody else.
So you want him grandfather in?
You take over the same lease that he that was on the hangar when he bought it.
So
It's my-
there's the exact same lease then, no changes at all? There are some other verbiage changes, so should we just leave it the exact same and then keep that, you know, on record so we can change it at the same time, everyone's at the same time?
That's what I think. Everybody changes it.
I think that makes sense, because, you know, you buy something and you have an understanding of what's required from the previous owner. And then all of a sudden, you see this change. So what makes me different? Why am I more risky than the guy next door? Why am I gonna cost the county more money?
Because that's. The county, the government can do that anytime they want. I mean, it happens to. Me on a lot of situations, they can change their mind whenever they want and make you pay a higher rate or whatever, but. It's fine, I don't care, that's, you guys wanna
It's
keep it.
just my opinion and my feelings on what's fair.
Well, it's grandfathered in type of thing, I guess.
That's a naughty word.
Grandfather. We're all on this. Anyway,
Grandpa, it's okay, but
is this something we need to move on today?
No, it can't.
I was,
didn't think so, but
I was gonna say, can we provide a copy of the old lease and new lease, or maybe even have Tess come in and explain some of the changes to know which agreement, along with the discussion on the insurance limitation or insurance caps?
For next week.
Yes,
makes sense.
I can put it on the agenda and let Tess know.
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Yep.
Anything else, Robert?
Not for me.
Great.
Oh, let's see, we had a Wildcat meeting last week, you know about that. And Department head, Bob talked about that. We gave out a zoning permit for a small butcher shop. Right on the Fillmore and Houston County line, totally happened. Outside of that, soon as Brian comes up with, easement to the airport, you have to go.
Okay, one thing I will mention. Ask the question with regard to these large sheds that are being built with water hookups. Do we go back and check and see if they built the shed with the water hookup and then it turns into
Into what?
a shed?
Oh,
Only from the perspective that I'm gonna get my permit for a shed and then I'm gonna build a shed. And who's gonna know the difference?
mhm.
We've had a couple of cases of that. The assessor's office does catch that. They go- might not happen right away, but if that does take place, it does get.
Well, when the sensors go out there, they gotta be able to go in the building too, not everybody lets you in. So that could be- if this
You
guy-
can tell if it's a shelf.
Oh, yeah, they got windows and pretty nice.
But I know one guy that they've had trouble with, that he made 10 doors that pull down, come down in front of the windows. When it's happened by himself, he rolls a 10 thing up and then look out the window.
Yeah. Okay,
So I mean, you're gonna have to, we'll have to hire somebody to learn to do that stuff because it's gonna be out of hand. I mean, I could take you around to a lot.
Well, I noticed that Martin and zoning department put in an ad in the paper about reminding people to apply for a permit for when they build.
keep on top of it.
I guess that's all I got.
Okay, anybody else for the good of the cause? And any public comment? Doesn't appear to be. Entertain a motion? Yep. There a second
Second.
discussion, everybody's being on, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay, carried.